Wonderful. Thank you. So everyone should now see the little globe symbol and you can select your language. So welcome. Thank you all for joining. This is part 2 of a 3-part Farm Bill discussion series. My name is Anya. I'm with Hunger Free Colorado. If you missed part 1 of our discussion series, don't worry. We put together a little summary of that I'll share in the chat in just a moment. And also my trusty partner, Wendy, is going to give a lightning speed recap as well. And our plan for today, we're going to hear from some guests and continue conversations from last week. A couple housekeeping items. If you're just joining us, please do put your name and where you're joining from and any other information you want to share in the chat. And we're going to be recording this call and we'll be sharing the recording and slides with all the registrants in a follow-up email. We do have quite a few folks on, which is wonderful. So please do keep your lines muted, but do use the chat. We'll be keeping an eye on that and saving that. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Wendy to go through the agenda and introduce our guests.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Anya. Welcome, everyone. So glad to see so many repeat and new faces to part 2 of our Farm Bill discussion series. My name is Wendy Peters Muschetti, she, her pronouns, and I am with Nourish Colorado. Very quick recap. I am one of many partners that has come together to host this 3-part webinar series. So along with Hunger Free Colorado, Blueprint to End Hunger, Alliance to End Hunger, National Young Farmers Coalition, Food Bank of the Rockies, and all of you, many of us who have a lot of interests in the Farm Bill have come together to host this 3-part series. As Anya mentioned, we did Farm Bill 101 on June 1st. I'll go through the agenda in just a minute about today, and then we'll have our 3rd discussion on July 13th. So those of us who have a lot of different interests in the Farm Bill thought we'd come together and just say, how can we engage as many people as possible across the state and really understanding what the Farm Bill is and how to get engaged and involved in doing the Farm Bill. So today, what we're going to do is I will in just a minute do a very brief recap of what is the Farm Bill. And as Anya mentioned, if you don't have it already, please let one of us know. We can send out the recording from the full hour-long Farm Bill 101 from June 1st. And then we have 3 special guests that we'll get to in a couple of minutes. We'll get to hear directly from staff who work with our federal delegation and really how to work with their offices and engage their offices around the Farm Bill and coordinate site visits with them and their bosses. And then we're going to move into a shared values discussion. So for those of you who were with us on the June 1st call, you'll remember that we ended that call by doing this turns out very extensive Miro board exercise. You all had a lot to say about what are potential values that we really should come together around to guide the work that we do and our priorities in the Farm Bill. So my colleagues Joelle and Megan are going to kind of ground us back in what we heard from you around shared values. And then we're going to close out with some examples and illustrations of how certain organizations, some on the phone call right now, some not, are moving those values forward with tangible priorities in the Farm Bill. So we kind of want to close out by sharing some specific work that some of us are doing to live out those values. So you leave with a better sense of, okay, well, who's specifically doing what, right, to move this forward in the Farm Bill. And then we'll wrap it up and get you ready for our July 13th call. So next slide, please. Thank you. So again, rapid fire. What is the Farm Bill? The Farm Bill is a massive piece of federal legislation that expires supposedly and is renewed supposedly every 5 years. The last Farm Bill was a 2018 Farm Bill. I think that Farm Bill was actually set to be a 2017 Farm Bill. It ended up being passed in 2018, though that does happen. We are really hoping that we're going to stick to a 5-year cycle and the next Farm Bill will be renewed in 2023. That is what we're here preparing for. As a massive piece of federal legislation, it goes through a very intricate process where it's proposed and debated by both the House and the Senate, by the specific committees of the House and the Senate, the full House and the Senate, and then eventually to the president to sign into law. The Farm Bill, we talked about this a lot last time. Many people feel strongly it probably is and should be called the Food and Farm Bill. It covers not just farm and agriculture, but food issues as well. Everything from crop insurance for farmers, healthy food access programs, beginning farmer training and support, sustainable farming, and critically, the entire SNAP program lives in the Farm Bill as well, the Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Programs. All of these programs impact our food and farm system and all of our anti-hunger programs in the country. So that was our rapid fire recap. So we're gonna now turn it over to some of our special guests. We have 3 guests with us today. And we're going to go in this order. So I hope that works for you. We're joined by Donnie Turner, Legislative Counsel with Senator Michael Bennett's office, who is joining us from her office in Washington, D.C. We have Helen Kadich with Senator John Hickenlooper's office, who I assume is joining us from her office in Durango. And then we have Peter Trapp, Legislative Aide with Representative Jason Crow's office. I assume is also joining us from Washington, D.C., but I'm not sure about that. So well, I'm going to pass it over to Donnie first. And just so everyone knows too, we're really excited to hear straight from these offices some tips and tricks about how to reach out to and engage our federal delegation around the Farm Bill, especially when it comes to planning and preparing for site visits. We've said this before. There is a recess in August. Our Congress will be home here in Colorado, and we want as many of you as possible to feel comfortable and equipped with reaching out to your representatives and senators and inviting them in to see your amazing work. So without further ado, Donnie, I'm going to pass it over to you.
Oh, great. Thanks, Wendy. Hi, everyone. I'm Donnie, as Wendy said, Senator Bennett's Counsel for Education, Judiciary, and of course, child nutrition issues. We do have a committee staffer who works specifically on his ag committee, but since I work on child nutrition, I help with the ag committee work in terms of the Farm Bill. And looking forward to learning a little bit about some of your priorities. I know we talk a lot about school meals and after school programs and providers for child nutrition and for the meals that help our communities across Colorado thrive. And so in terms of Senator Bennett's work on the Farm Bill, you know, we've been talking with committee staff and working with our partners in Senator Hickenlooper's office and with the House delegation, hi Peter, in Representative Crow's office on some of the priorities for Colorado. And discussions are still underway. No legislation has been drafted yet. And we expect that there will be continuing discussions. And so this is helpful for our office to be able to take this back to the committee and say, this is what we are fighting for. So I will leave it there because I know our time is short.
Thanks, Donnie. Helen, do you want to?
Sure. It is so good to see everybody on this call. Change of roles, really, really good to see so many familiar faces. So Helen Kadich with Senator Hickenlooper's office, good to see you, Donnie. And thanks for the invitation. So one quick note is I just want to highlight and share how lucky we are to have Senator Bennett in this particular role for this particular conversation. So just want to celebrate the work of Senator Bennett and their whole team. Thank you, Donnie, for being such a great collaborator over in DC. So as much as we can partner with Senator Bennett's office, that's what our office is wanting to do with all of you as well. Senator Bennett's office is hosting a number of roundtable conversations that I also just wanted to bump throughout the state. So I think y'all are over on the Eastern Plains now having conversations around the Farm Bill, but keep an eye out within Senator Bennett's office for various roundtable conversations regarding the Farm Bill. We are also hosting one-on-one conversations very, very, very early on. As Donnie was sharing, we don't even have draft legislation yet for it. So in our office, Julia Berry is our legislative aide who's hosting these small one-on-one conversations, 2 to 3 people kind of max, to really get the priorities for different leaders in this area throughout the state. I'm going to chat in just a moment here Julia's email address and contact information. The best way to get in touch with Julia for one of these one-on-one conversations to get kind of early ear from our DC office is either to ping me or ping Julia directly, and we'll set up a call all together. There's been a number of folks on this call right now already who have connected with Julia. So want to thank you all for your time if you've already had the chance to connect with our DC office about this conversation. And then third on, Wendy, I will just echo you. It is so important to get our bosses and staff on the ground to see and celebrate the work that you are doing on the ground, and also hear about any stuck points that y'all are running into, that there might be this federal nexus that our bosses and our staff and support in DC can do to see if we can change anything on a level that will be more supportive of your organization. Or if you're applying for federal grants, that's a great opportunity to engage in our office as well for letters of support or what have you. So a great opportunity to get both staff and the senators on the ground coming up here in August, but really for any recess period. Best way to go about that is either email me directly or give me a buzz. I'm going to chat in my cell phone number as well, so just don't hesitate to give me a call anytime. And Leah Davis is the last person who's Senator Hickenlooper's scheduler that I'll chat in her email address too. So if there's an event that you want to highlight or want to put out a continued offer for just coming in and checking out your work, that would be great. As Wendy shared, I'm down in Southwest Colorado, based out of Durango, but we have outreach staff throughout the state. So feel free just to reach out anytime. So I'll chat in this contact information now, and just really, really good to see everybody. Hope you're doing well. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Helen. It was incredibly useful. And just to clarify, even though you're Durango based, it's okay for people to ping you via cell phone no matter where they are in the state. True?
Yeah, and I'm working throughout the western slope. So if you're doing anything on the western side of the state, feel free to give me a buzz, or else I'll connect you with other outreach staff. So feel free.
Perfect. Helen, thank you so much. And now, Peter. I don't see you, but I know you're here. There you are.
Great. Can you hear me okay? Perfect. I'm working from home and my Wi-Fi went out, and I have a makeshift setup of books all stacked on top of each other. So certainly I was a little unsure if this would go through well, but I really appreciate you all having me here. And Wendy, you all know, is an all-star and absolutely incredible. One of the first people I met when I took this job with Congressman Crow, and worked with Anya and a whole lot of you, and it's been an absolute joy. And that said, as we move forward with the Farm Bill, it's one of my boss's priorities to ensure we have equitable access to food and healthy food all across the state. So definitely really looking forward to working with all of you and getting to know you. And Wendy, you were talking about the importance of site visits, especially this August. I think as you all are looking forward to getting people out to your sites and getting the congressman out to your sites or staff members out, definitely just feel free to ping me and email me. I'm sort of echoing what my colleagues on the Senate side talked about, but more than happy to set up these visits, especially during the August recess, and we have a lot of time and are back in district. I personally am going to be going out to Colorado in August and am putting together my list of places to go to and visit. So definitely on my to-do list to get out to some of your all's areas and see the work that you're doing in the community and the impact that you're making. That said, not during the August recess and in the future, I think you can always ping me or give me a call. I'll put my phone number in the chat too, and you're always welcome to call me if you have any questions or have any efforts that you're looking at. And aside from that, and I'm sorry this is getting long now, but Congressman Crow, interestingly, hasn't been involved in a farm bill process since he's been in Congress. He was elected in 2018 and came in 2019. So we're a little unsure with how it goes. So we're going to be working with you all and building our process out as we move forward. So definitely want to keep that line of communication open and be that door into our office and to the congressman as we move forward and figure out our plan and our path forward to make sure that we get all of our priorities included in the bill. So definitely you have an open ear here and looking forward to working with all of you. But thanks so much for having me and looking forward to listening to the rest of this.
Thank you all. Thank you, Peter, Donnie, and Helen for being here. We do have a few minutes for questions. So if anyone wants to start chatting in questions for anyone or for a person specifically, please do that now. And while I'm waiting to see if there are questions, I will also add that we fully acknowledge that we are so thrilled you're here, Peter, that there are a lot of representatives' offices that aren't here right now either. And if anyone is interested in connecting to their office, please follow up with me. I'm sure Anya, Joelle, and others are happy to make connections as well. So if that is a connection you do not have with your representative's office and you would like assistance in making that, because Representative Crow is not your representative, please do reach out to one of us. We're very happy to connect you to the other offices as well. So we have a question from Ivan. I hope I'm saying your incredibly beautiful name correctly. Is it best to propose possible dates for visits to our work we're doing to leave things fairly flexible for the best chance for making a visit work? So come in specifically or offer a few dates. What's the best approach?
I think either both would be great. You can look up the recess dates. It's very simple and public information, so best to fall within those recess dates if you're proposing a specific time. Oftentimes our bosses are in different parts of the state, so I think, for example, Senator Hickenlooper will be on the western part of the state for most of August recess, but depending on where they are and the dates, feel free to throw out events or just a general invite. We can go from there. Does that sound right, Donnie and Peter, for y'all?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you. That's great. Yeah, either depending on if you have an event, if there is a special occasion, you might have a specific date, but if you're pretty flexible, that is helpful too. So our schedulers can work with you to figure out when's the best time for the senator to visit your site. Options are good.
Great. And I have Sue Ryden. I do see your question about the referred measure, Healthy School Meals for All. I'm going to come back to that. I'm going to direct that to Anya in a minute. And while we have our friends on the line here, I'm going to go to Anne's question about here's how this coalition is approaching House districts that will have different reps next year. Are you setting up meeting with the candidates? I'm going to take that question. I'm going to field that question. Our organization is not. We do not meet with Lauren Boebert's office, and we do not have plans to do that. I don't know, do other organizations on the line have other responses to that, of how you might be meeting up with candidates that may lose their seat?
I can respond also. So this is an interesting area also for nonprofits, for if you have a 501c3 status like Hunger Free Colorado does. So we usually don't meet with candidates, one for capacity reasons, but also because you have to be super careful. 501c3s can't engage in any election activities. And so it can just be tricky territory. So we typically don't meet with candidates. We meet with folks once they're elected and are in office.
Correct. Sorry. I realized halfway through I was answering that incorrectly. Your wrong question, the different question. And we do not meet with candidates either. So we do, however, continue to meet with, I was really thinking about incumbents. We do, like, for example, we still meet with Representative Perlmutter's office and talk with him on a regular basis, even though he is retiring. for example. We maintain relationships with incumbents till the end. Slightly different question. Sorry, I answered the wrong question. And Effie answered that as well in the chat. Thank you. Joelle, you have a question?
Yeah, thanks so much, Wendy. And thanks for everyone on the call. I just want to reiterate that Donnie and Helen and Peter are great in this space, and we are so grateful to have them. And I just wanted to note it's Evan. Evan is the new Colorado organizer with National Young Farmers, working with Aaron Foster West. So Evan asked that great first question. I made that same mistake yesterday, Wendy. But my question is there a particular site or organization that is really speaking to your bosses at this time? Is it a summer feeding site? Is it a community organization that serves people who are houseless? Is it a locally owned farm? What is really that site that really gets your boss excited right now that would fall under the auspices of these organizations that we could help set up?
I'll start, and I'll say Senator Bennett has been really fascinated and has met with food banks, and we've been talking about some of the summer meal programs. And so I think he would be interested in visiting some of the sites that provide the sources of food during the summer, especially as we've been talking about school meals and extending those waivers to those food meal programs. He's, of course, as a former superintendent, is curious about kids and their families and making sure that families have enough food over the summer. And so the farm to table and the distribution and the supply chain and the nutrition standards, all of that are things that he's interested in and would be, I think, would love to visit this summer.
Yeah, I can jump in next. I know my boss we have one of the most diverse districts in the nation, and he's been really interested in improving access to underrepresented and low income communities throughout the district when it comes to these waivers and ensuring that we push them as far as we can throughout the public health emergency. I think he meets a lot with something that really gets him excited is the local food banks and the incredible network that we have within our district and the incredible work they do providing for low income and underrepresented communities. So wherever we can increase access, increase equity, and increase nutrition is something that he's always interested in, and we're happy to work with.
I'll echo that. I think all three organizations are aligned in that way. Also just want to throw out and celebrate the work of many of the folks on this call organizing around the extended waiver program. So the Keep Kids Fed Act passed this last week. So really just want to do a huge shout out to many folks on this call for organizing around that. So I think the more that we can highlight the work that you all have done in that space and the work of our senators and congressional folks to pass that would be great. One other note is Senator Hickenlooper, he chairs the Small Business and Entrepreneurship Subcommittee. So anything that has a pull into small business, new business, anything on workforce development or training programs, I think always gets him really excited and inspired. So pulling that into a lot of the anti-poverty work and feeding programs that y'all are working on, that's always a spectacular opportunity for him to really be able to pull the strings that he's able to within that particular committee. The one kind of offshoot to that is, I think each one of our bosses sits on different committees, and that's all public information as well. And so that's, again, just an opportunity for them to be able to push for whatever programs tie into their committee seats. So just a tip on getting them engaged and getting them in spaces where they can really do big work.
Thank you all. And perfect, we'd scheduled this to go to about 12:30 and I don't see any more questions. So I think this is perfect timing. Thank you, Donnie. Thank you, Helen. Thank you, Peter, all so much for being here. Everyone now has your contact information, including a cell phone number. So thank you for being so accessible to everyone. And you're all, of course, welcome to stay for the rest of the conversation, but completely understood if you need to depart and get back to your. And Megan, I do see you have a question. Sorry, I couldn't see that hand.
No worries. Hi, thank you for joining us today. And if I've never reached out to a senator or congressperson's office, I might feel a little nervous. What are my first steps when I reach out to a scheduler to work through the process and feel confident and comfortable in doing so? Thank you.
Megan, it's really good to see you, and I hope everyone is feeling properly intimidated by your Senate and House staffers here. So just know that it's us who are replying to your messages, and we want to hear from you. So just reach out. I think the pro tip, at least on the state side, is to reach out to your state staffers, and all of us on this call are happy to link you up there, and then we can connect with the scheduling team. So know that you'll have support from state staff to get in touch with the DC folks as well on the scheduling side. But it's us reading your emails, and just want to let you know that we really, really, really appreciate and see your work. So don't hesitate to reach out.
Definitely agree. Feel free to reach out to the contact that you have in our office. If it's not me and Senator Bennett's office, if it's another contact you have in the state, feel free to reach out to them directly, and we'll make sure that your email gets to the right person, if it's to the scheduler or if it's to, in my case, if you're trying to reach our ag staffer, or maybe you're trying to reach on something else. We have a legislative staff that covers every legislative issue. So we'll make sure that your email gets to the appropriate person, and that you get a quick, prompt response. And feel free to bug us. We do get busy, but we love to hear from you. And so feel free to ping us and follow up. We encourage that, please.
Yeah, I just want to echo all of that. I think they touched on it really great. We're on the other end of all of your phone calls are our smiling faces, even though we may be not smiling from day to day. When you give us a call, it brightens our day for sure. So definitely feel free to call whenever or email. And when, for example, whenever I see Wendy's name come up in my inbox, it brightens my day. So definitely, please feel free to reach out, and we're always happy to answer as quickly as we can. So.
And I can attest that they are very responsive people. So you must be pretty bright, because I send you a lot of emails, Peter. So thank you all for being here again. Thank you for being so responsive and so open and so accessible. And they mean everything that they say. These are real people on the other end of the line. So thank you for asking that question, Megan, and closing us out. I did see, so again, welcome to stay, friends. Welcome to depart, whatever works for your schedule. Thank you so much for being here. We're going to move into the shared values discussion. Sue, I did see your question about how referred measure, which is Healthy School Meals for All Act here in the state of Colorado, might relate to federal action. Anya, is there a simple and short answer that you can give to that as Joelle moves us into shared values, or is that something you want to follow up with?
I'll give a short version, and then Sue, feel free to follow up with me if you'd like. So the quick answer is that Healthy School Meals for All will be on the ballot in November. And we will be voting if we want to put state funds towards creating basically a universal meals program at no cost to families in Colorado. That's definitely going to interact with federal programs. It's mostly going to interact with child nutrition programs, which are very related to things in the Farm Bill, but are actually authorized in a separate piece of legislation, which I know is confusing. But those programs like the National School Lunch Program are usually authorized through child nutrition reauthorization, which also is supposed to happen about every 5 years, but doesn't. It's been really, really delayed. And then there are other connections to federal programs that are in the Farm Bill. For example, the more folks who are eligible for and accessing SNAP that are actually on the program, the more students are going to directly qualify for school meals and get federal funding for that. And so the less healthy school meals for all costs for Coloradans. So that's my attempt at a short answer to a great complicated question, but I'm happy to follow up with you after if you have other questions, Sue. Thank you.
Perfect. Thanks so much, all. And I just want to reiterate, Anya mentioned it would take state funding, but it would limit standard deductions and itemized deductions for very high income households making over $300,000 a year. And that's the tax revenue source for Universal Meals for All. Just very important, I think, to reiterate that's a majority of our families and communities across Colorado will feel no increased tax burden whatsoever in supporting Universal Meals for All. Okay, for about 6 minutes, I want to take us through our shared values that we identified together as a group last time. If you look into the chat, I dropped in the jam board that we all filled out that basically said, we envision a farm bill that's ... Y'all were wonderful. We got hundreds of suggestions as to what our farm bill shared collected values are, because again, we all have different focus areas. We all have different strengths. So we're going to focus on different things within the farm bill, but we wanted to find those uniting values that carry us all together throughout the work, right? So I also put in a Google document into the chat as well, so we can kind of have an opportunity to take a look, read through, digest the different values, and maybe tweak in your own time or offer suggestions or comments or edits as well. But the first value that we came up with, again, we took all your great suggestions and we kind of tried to distill them down as much as possible into 3 shared values, was unites us in reimagining an American food system that recognizes that all people deserve access to the nutrient-dense and healing food that they choose, where they live, when they need it. A few things that we really recognized here, we want to focus, the Farm Bill impacts the American food system, number 1, first and foremost, but all people deserve access to nutrient dense. We want food that's really healthful, and we decided on nutrient dense based on the feedback we got, and healing food that, helps support healthy bodies, healthy lives, ameliorates chronic disease. And then the culturally appropriate and local access issue as well, food that they choose. So the food that people want to have, and everybody knows how to eat healthy. There's a lot of health literacy in the space, regardless if somebody's in poverty or not. So people know what food they need. So the food they choose, where they live in their local communities, and when they need it, consistent access as well. So that's value number 1. The next shared value we had was really focused on equity and how important equity is in creating a farm bill and pushing forward this work. So a farm bill that centers the needs and values of under-resourced communities, especially BIPOC and LGBTQ2+ communities, farmers, and farm workers, were disproportionately impacted by policies that favor those with power. And that's a really key point there, is those with power. Traditionally, farms, sort of food access across the spectrum has been contained among white male farm workers. So how do we look for the opportunities to support our BIPOC and LGBTQ2+ communities that are historically under-resourced in the work, and create policies that lift up under-resourced communities? And then finally, a focus on environment. And again, creating strong local food systems, promotes local food systems from urban to frontier communities, so not just in one part of the state or the other, but everywhere, that are resilient and regenerative, and that empower people and their local economies at every step from farm to table. So we really want to make sure that resilient and regenerative, that means communities that can provide everything they need within their local community, right? We're not having to truck in food from, thousands of miles away, that we have local communities that are disaster resilient and can feed people, that are regenerative and support good farming practices that replenish the soil, re-nurture the soil so that it's sustainable, and that empower local economies as well, so that we're really supporting the people who live within communities as we're creating food from farm all the way down the line to consumer. So I invite anyone to read through these values, these shared values on this Google document that I put in the chat. If you have suggestions on how any of these shared values could be improved, we're totally open to it. And we'll leave this document open for, let's call it 2 weeks, all the way up until our next convening. And then we'll kind of, as we come into our next convening, we'll consider these shared values, kind of the concrete shared values that we're all going to carry forward together. So again, please feel free to go into that document, provide suggestions as necessary, or, if it resonates with you and you feel like they're okay, let us know as well, so we can collect positive feedback as well as critical feedback. Any time, I think I have time for like maybe 1 or 2 brief questions before we move into the next section. Okay, perfect. I'll monitor the chat as well, in case anyone has any other questions. But now, as we think through our shared values, I'm going to hand things off to Megan to kind of carry us through some more of the direct work that we're going to be engaging in and finding opportunities for us to begin to be action-oriented and look at opportunities to focus on the Farm Bill. So Megan, I'll hand it off to you.
Thank you. So as we know, the Farm Bill is a pretty gigantic piece of legislation and houses all sorts of different components within federal legislation that guide our lives. Everything from our food to conservation, education, farm credit, and beyond. What that means is, across the United States and right here in Colorado, there are organizations working on one, if not more, of these issues. We may not have all the voices in the room, but we've got great voices in the room today to help guide our work together. We all know of organizations focusing on one or more of these Farm Bill titles. So today, we're going to use our great minds to make sure we're including all those voices. Remember, it doesn't have to be your organization. It can be an organization you know of that's doing great work. And it doesn't have to be your neighbor organization. We want to hear about what everyone's doing to work towards a better, more equitable, more accessible food system and Farm Bill. Nutrition title, the one we probably know the most about. As you can see on the slide, Nourish Colorado, and thank you, Wendy and team, are doing some great work around this title. SNAP produce incentives and funding for technology and innovation, Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, value-based procurement reform, SNAP Online. There's more, right? So we want to be populating all of these slides. Who's doing what? This is your opportunity to let us know. Nutrition title, Title 4. You can chat it in. You can unmute yourself and share who you know that's doing this work. Don't be shy, people. This is the one we all care about and we're all very embedded in. It feels big. And if you look at the budget, it is big on purpose. So this is where we're making sure that everyone has equitable access to these programs.
And Megan, just for the nutrition title, there are a couple extra slides. So I know this is an area that Hunger Free Colorado was working on a lot. So we have priorities around SNAP on here. And then we also in advance heard from Feeding Colorado on some of their priorities around commodity programs like the Emergency Food Assistance Program. But like Megan said, we also know that it's not just those three groups in the space. There are tons doing great work.
Thank you, Anya. I see in the chat, there's a progressive Farm Bill coalition at the national level working on all of these titles. And they have specific working group on the nutrition title. How exciting. Annie, we want to know more about that coalition, how we can learn more about their work, and learn more about how they're advocating for a better farm bill, not just in the nutrition title, but in all the titles. So Annie, we invite you to share. Thank you, Annie. We have a contact, Justin at Progressive Caucus Center. Amazing, a place for all of us to educate ourselves and get involved. Now we know there's more than one title in the Farm Bill. Keep chatting in your Title 4s. We're gonna move to the horticulture title, where we know that our partners also are working hard to care for our soil, our land, our farm workers, and our farms. Equity, inclusivity, and accessibility, reforming local and regional food systems through our federal granting programs. We know we need everyone's voices here. I'd like to point out the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition as well, working in this space. National Young Farmers Coalition, y'all are on the call. I won't speak for you. But here again, who do you know? Where are they working? And how can we incorporate our work with the work of other organizations to make sure we're using our voice loud and proud? And if you can't think of it now, that's okay. We're all here to aggregate this information to each other. We'll make sure we share it out. Horticulture is important in our resource management. So when you're thinking about who might be working in this space, who's working with water, soil health, climate justice, they're working here. Let's move along. Yes, the Rural Coalition. I also like the Center for Rural Affairs as well in that space. Conservation title. So I will actually invite Erin to speak about some of the work that National Young Farmers Coalition is doing and to share your ideas about others working in this space.
Thanks, Megan. Hi all, this is Erin with Young Farmers. I think it's on here, but we're working a lot on the conservation title to make the conservation programs more accessible for BIPOC farmers, for folks who are operating small farms, diversified farms, also looking at the easement programs and how that can be improved to support equitable land access and transition. So yeah, I would just invite anyone to follow up if you're interested in collaborating.
Thank you, Erin. And again, conservation, it lives in more than just one place, but in Title II, This is where we'll use our voices to make sure that we're keeping our land healthy, active, equitable, in ways that work all across the value chain. It's in there, and there's lots of people working on it. Next slide. Energy title. Who knew? Energy in the Farm Bill? Here it is. So think about who's working on renewable energy resources. How are those funded? What are the requirements to get into those programs? Does your farm qualify? How are we using our land? Respecting our land? Who's working in this space? We want to hear from you. And it goes well beyond what you may hear about with renewable fuel standards and into lots of different kinds of renewable energy. Again, if you don't know today, you don't have to know today. But as you explore the Farm Bill and you discover organizations working in this space, share it with us. Next slide. Rural development. Many of you are already working in this space, have applied for some of these federal programs. Who are our leaders here advocating for federal granting programs that will work for small and mid-sized farmers, that will help rural communities access all the different components that they need to thrive? Don't everybody speak at once. It's rural development. Even when you live in a city, you rely on us out here in rural places for things like your water, your electricity, and your food. It's important to everyone. I would say that I love the organizations working on acreage requirements here. Sometimes what stands between small farms like mine and federal programs that you find in the rural development title. Next slide. All right, Erin, you're up again. The miscellaneous title, the title of all the things we didn't know what to name, so we threw it all in one title in the Farm Bill. You'll be surprised what's in there. But Erin's got some info for you.
Yeah, this is a catch-all. So I just took a few things in here that we're working on that didn't fit well anywhere else. But land access and transition is kind of one of our big focuses. So we're looking to include a new initiative at USDA to focus more on community-led projects that can create secure land tenure, and also looking at increasing some funding for heirs property relending program, which is some support for folks that don't have legal assistance to secure a title when there's an inheritance issue. So it's a little more complex than we can get into, but happy to chat about those too. We've got some other priorities, didn't all fit on the slide, but we can share with anyone that wants to collaborate around land access.
Thank you, Erin. I see the Healthy Food Financing Initiative under Rural Development, and thanks for bringing that up, Anne. As we look forward to a strong voice towards a better, more equitable, more accessible Farm Bill, it's important that we don't forget how many people are working really hard towards this goal. And when we work together, we're going to have the most effective, efficient, and productive outcomes. So thank you for thinking about all the titles and joining us today. I'm going to pass it back to Anya. Are you closing? Is that Wendy?
Sure, I can close this out. So we do, if you know of folks working on other titles too, we didn't get to all of them today, but there's also crop insurance title, the credit title, commodity title, trade, forestry. Really, we just want to know what work is happening in the space so that we can build kind of a directory to help all of us in this work over the next year plus. So I took a lot of notes based on what people were adding in the chat. Thank you. And we'll consolidate all of that and include it in follow-ups. So just like the values document that Joelle shared, where we'll keep that open and allow edits and input for the next couple of weeks, we will do the same with putting this directory together so that it can be a working document for all of us. Thank you so much for joining again today. Our next call will be Wednesday, July 13th, same time, 12 to 1. It'll be on the same Zoom line, and we'll also send out a reminder email that morning. But we hope to see you then. We'll focus on planning for August and ongoing advocacy, and we'll revisit what we talked about today, including the values and some of the work you all are doing. We will send a follow-up email with recordings and slides and lots of resources and links and all the contact information that was shared today. So don't worry if you weren't able to get everything from the chat. But with that, thank you all so much and have a great rest of your day.